ISO 27001 Annex A 7.5, protecting against environmental and physical threats, right? So this forms part of business continuity, really. There are a couple of things that are going to lead you to where you are on here, and most of them you're going to be replacing reliance on other people, right? So if you don't have data processing facilities, it doesn't apply. See the blog on how you deal with that if you're fully remote or you don't have data processing. This assumes you've got data processing. When it comes to your office configuration, your facilities configuration, you are going to have engaged with a professional that will help you to build and spec and set that out. And it is highly likely, probable, and should be the case that they have already taken into account physical and environmental threats when designing the facilities that you have. Okay, this only really becomes a problem when you're smaller. So what you have is you have data processing facilities, you have a server, you have that server that sits under your main developer's desk or the business owner's desk. They like to put their cups of coffee on it. There is no actual control around that. The room that you're in is next to a window, and in the summer it gets really, really hot, right? So what are we looking at here? Let's look at the definition. Protection against physical and environmental threats such as natural disasters and other intentional or unintentional physical threats to infrastructure should be designed and implemented. So what we're looking at, again, it's the physicality, right? The physicality of how you are installing things and where those things are. Let me give you some guidance and considerations that I have seen over the years. Number one, right? Starting off with that server, having a server, a main production dev server, test server, sat under people's desks, sat in people's garages, sat in people's home offices. That is not appropriate for that level of production system. There are too many physical things that can go wrong with it. Things like spillages, things like knocking it, things like breaking it, right? So what we need to look at is the physical location of those devices. I have seen the situation where we don't have environmental controls in place around our data processing. Things like the equivalent of air conditioning, right? Maintaining the regular temperature of a room, not having cooling of the devices to keep that device at a temperature that ensures that it operates and it doesn't malfunction. I have seen the situation where people have put in things like air conditioning and they've put the actual outlet unit, you know, the bit that blows the cold air, directly above the servers. And then what happens is over years, through either lack of maintenance or just time, they start to drip. They drip water onto the electrics, they drip water onto the production systems. So the siting of those elements requires a professional with an understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve so that they can help you meet the requirement and protect against that. We've also seen situations where data processing facilities have been put in rooms with windows. And again, 99% of the time, if you're in the UK specifically, you may get away with it, right? Because it's not sunny. And then you get that 1 or 2 days a year that we all pray for where the sun shines and the sun comes streaming in through the window directly onto the data processing facilities, heats up the room, heats up the device, and causes you all kinds of problems. I've also seen the situation where there isn't adequate protection and control from a fire perspective. So you need to be making sure that you've got things like fire suppression, even if that's just as simple as having a fire extinguisher. But again, you're going to be meeting the requirements of the law, right? You're going to be engaging with a legal professional to make sure you meet the requirements of the law, health and safety, and all regulators and all regulations. I have seen, and it is probably nailed on, that an auditor will check your fire suppression. They will always check fire extinguishers. I don't know why, they just like to do it. They want to make sure that that fire extinguisher is operable, in date, recently serviced, you know, and is fit for purpose. So there are environmental controls that you need to put in place. If it is the case that you are a small business and you do have a server and it is in your bedroom or in your garage or under your desk, this is one of the ones where, you know, you can fail. Now, yes, technically you could put this onto your risk register, accept the risk of not having that control in place. You could put next to that the compensating controls that you've got and accept the risk, and it is likely that you will still pass, but it will be highly frowned upon. You know, if you are involved in this, if you are involved in servers and the requirement for them and the maintenance of them, you know what is right and you know what is wrong. And you know whether or not you're just trying to save a quick buck or two by doing and skirting around what it is that should be done. Okay, so the less mature you are, the earlier you are in the journey, the more of a challenge and the more of a risk that this will be to you. The higher up you are, where you start to engage teams and professionals, then the less of a risk that this is going to be to you. So you just need to be aware of that. You're going to make sure you've done your risk assessment. You're going to make sure you've done your fire and environmental risk assessment. You're going to consult professionals and specialists where required, you know, for fire, for flood, for theft, civil unrest, earthquake, explosion, as relevant to the locale, geography and area that you're in. You're going to install and configure systems to detect fire, flood, electrical surges, explosion, explosives and weapons, and put physical security controls in based on risk and business need. So there's a lot of environmental things that can go wrong here, and you're trying to cover all of the bases, but all of these are standard. There is nothing in here that is going to shock or surprise you. And if it does, then reach out and get a professional and get them to come in and give you some guidance on it. My name is Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. And until the next tutorial, peace out.